Tabatha Coffey had an unusual and sometimes hard-scrabbled childhood well worth writing about. She spent a lot of time in her parents' clubs with strippers and drag queen aunties, often in the presence of one of Australia's most notorious mobsters, a guy named Abe Saffron. In spite of this, some of her upbringing was traditional and much of it not. Today, she is a straight-shooting, sometimes feisty femme fatale who has candidly and bravely shared the experiences of her life in her memoir called It's Not Really About the Hair. She is also the star of her own hit reality TV series, Tabatha's Salon Takeover, where she unleashes her no-nonsense advice.
Ooh, wow, this is nice. Whose station's this?
Karen.
Karen, this is your station. And do you think it's okay if a client sits there with that?
No.
Who did you say cleans in the salon?
My assistant, Christina.
Where's Christina? When's the last time you cleaned, Christina?
Today?
Really? Today? Come over here. Get on the chair. You're going to run your hand along the top and show me the dust. Then clients sit here and look at that. Oh, my God. Oh, look at this. That just fell off the mirror.
It is my pleasure to welcome Tabatha Coffey to Studio 4 to tell us more. You are a tough act to follow, girl.
I'm tough at times. I'm tough when I need to be.
Mm-hmm. You know, the last chapter of It's Not Really About the Hair asked the question, why write this little book anyway? Why did you?
You know what? I've honestly just had such an overwhelming response of support from fans and people emailing me, and I'm very active on social media. So people will Facebook me and email me and all these kind of things. And the questions were never about hair. They were always about, how do I get started in business? How did you know that you loved your industry so much? How do I find my passion? How did you grow up? You know, tell me about you. Why are you so honest? And nothing ever pertained to hair. And I really just wanted to let everyone get to know me a little bit better, share some of my personal stories, and hopefully let other people out there feel a little bit better about themselves and empowered.
Well, your personal stories are well worth sharing. That childhood of yours, not so dull.
Not so dull.
Take me back. The 7-year-old Tabatha Coffey introduced me to Mom and to Dad.
Mum and Dad. My father, as I refer to him in the book lovingly, Jekyll and Hyde. You never knew who you were coming home to or what you were getting that day. He had a drinking problem.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Drunk.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was being kind this morning. Yeah, he was definitely erratic in his behaviour and had a very bad drinking problem. And you really did never know who you were coming home to. You know, the nice guy was incredibly nice, very smart, very well educated, very caring. The other guy, crazy.
Yeah, they spin on a dime.
On a dime.
And Mom?
Incredibly strong, tenacious, ethical, tough.
Tough. Didn't take
Really
any
tough.
guff from Dad.
Took nothing from anyone.
It's so good, isn't it?
It's really good. It was really good to
And God
grow
bless
up
her
with that.
soul, because I know
Yeah.
you lost her last year.
I did.
So, they're in the club biz. Ma and Pa.
Yes, Mum and Dad were in the nightclub business in Australia and ran strip clubs that were actually transsexual strip clubs. So pretty much everyone that worked in there was a drag queen, sex changed, non-sex changed, about to be sex changed.
A gay, straight, bisexual.
Exactly, whatever.
A little bit of
Anything went.
everyone. And you were a small girl and got to share your stories with drag queen aunties. How much fun was that?
Are you kidding? It was the best. I mean, in reflection, you don't realize because you're a kid. So you're growing up in that environment, and although you know that your friends aren't growing up like that, you don't realize how special it is until you can kind of reflect back. So it was amazing. I mean, look, they got me started in hairdressing. They put me to work. I would hang out with them and watch them do their makeup and get dressed and sit there sewing their costumes. And they put me to work setting their wigs. They were so incredibly honest and just gave me this amazing education growing up.
And did you have girlfriends your own age?
No, I didn't care for children. I didn't care for children. And, you know, look, to be honest, I was always around adults. So I was a very old soul at a very young age.
Right.
And I was in this adult world. And children were mean to me. You know, I was the overweight, fat kid And all the kids at school would make fun of me and call me Orca and just these terrible names. So no, I wasn't great with the kids.
So you were plump, but I bet your aunties at the club thought you were a beautiful little person.
Oh, they thought I was perfect, which is what was so great though, because that was the balance. You know, I had this self-esteem because I had these people telling me that I was fabulous and telling me that I looked great and I was perfect the way I was. So even when I would go to school and have children, you know, really harass me and be so incredibly mean about how I looked, I had the reinforcement from these adults that I adored telling me that I was great.
And is it true your dad had to pay kids to play with you or tried to pay kids to play with you?
It is true. It is true, yes. You know, look, I wasn't comfortable with children because I was with adults so much, and I probably wasn't outgoing enough to go out there and kind of play in the streets with the neighborhood kids. And yes, my father tried to pay children to play with me.
Well, Dad
Thanks,
wasn't
Fanny.
all that good. I know, but your dad wasn't all that good at babysitting either because, as I recall, having loved and read this book, on your dad's watch, you once ate a box of matches.
I did. He was drunk. And he just kind of left me to my own devices, and the matches were sitting there, and I picked them up and ate all the heads off the matches.
Great.
Yeah.
See, he didn't want to babysit, really.
Yeah, clearly.
Clearly not. So, this Abe guy, Abe Saffron, did you know he was a mobster? Did you have any idea what he did for a living when he hung out at the club? So you knew.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the way I was brought up is everything was always discussed, laid out on the table, very honest. My mother hid nothing. So I knew what Abe did, met him several times, thought he was charming and delightful because he was.
Sure.
But yes, I knew who he was and what he did.
How long did Dad stay around, your father?
My father left, I was around 10, 11, I think, when he disappeared.
Because, I won't tell that because it's such a good part of the book about how he disappeared. But he did have a little fling with the florist.
He did have a little fling with the florist, yes. He
Did you know about that, or did your mom? When you were older, obviously you knew about it.
I knew the
but
second
at the time,
happened.
did you know?
I knew the second it happened. My mother
Really?
actually found him with her,
The florist.
with the florist, and my mother came straight outside. I was sitting in the car. We were going to pick him up. My mother came straight outside and said, "I just found your father with another woman. I'm going to go and take care of it. Don't move."
Whoops.
So I knew about it. I mean, as the book tells, there was a schedule that my mother wrote up, and yeah, I knew all about it.
And she hired somebody to do something.
I wouldn't say she hired, but someone did something.
Well, this
it's
is
nice
all
to have
good.
connections.
Sure, but the florist is still alive. Or we don't know if she's still alive. It wasn't that something. It wasn't like
Oh
take
no,
the florist out.
absolutely not.
Just mess up her shop a little bit.
Just go pay a visit.
Well, you know, as a female, you think, why did I get flowers every Friday from that rotten husband? What was that about? And then you figure it out. The light comes on. He was having a fling with the florist.
Yes.
Of course that makes sense now. But your mother, in spite of the fact that she grew up, not grew up, but lived with a dad who was a bit of a troublemaker and I'm sure passionate and also awful, really had a pretty strong moral compass.
Oh, she really did. I mean, she was very religious in her own way and had these morals and standards, and everything kind of followed through to them. And it's surprising to people, I think, because it sounds like an oxymoron that someone that, you know, is quite religious and has this moral compass is then dealing with a mobster in Australia and running strip clubs. But there is a balance, and I think it's doing what you need to do. She never did anything that harmed anyone, that hurt anyone, that, you know, was offensive to what she believed in.
Right. When you told her you are not a straight woman, that you had a female partner, and I know you dated men and all of that, you would think your mother, having run the clubs and the sex shop and all of that, would be totally okay with that.
Yeah, not so much.
But apparently not.
Yeah, she wasn't. I mean, she was really, I thought she would be fine. And she wasn't fine. She freaked out. She wasn't happy about it. It took us a long time to work through the process, which is, again, why I talk about it in the book, because so many young people struggle with that and don't know what to do. And I struggled with it, and I wanted to share that story because it took me a while to realize, you know what, I love you, you're my mother, however, I need to be happy. I need to be happy for me.
And any person who is lesbian or gay or bisexual has pretty much had that experience. It's a rare day when you say to mom or dad, sometimes they'll say, you know, I always knew, but I sure don't like it. You say, well, born that way.
Absolutely.
Sorry about that. And if you're lucky, your folks come around.
Yeah, and look, mine did, and it's great. But again, I think it's something that's really important to share with people, because one would think, reading my story, my upbringing, that my mother would be like, okay, fine. You know, moving on, let's go.
Sure.
And she so wasn't that way.
In spite of your dad's demons and all of that, she was still one strong woman.
Incredibly strong.
Seems
she was
to me.
incredibly tough.
How did you feel about you going into the hair biz, or did she care?
Oh, she loved it. My mother had been a hairdresser. So I never knew that she was a hairdresser. She wasn't practicing when, you know, when I came into the world. But went with her every Saturday to get her hair done, loved hanging out in the salon with her, and she was thrilled.
Well, as you know, sometimes if you are a hairdresser or a waitress, you want your kids to be bankers or lawyers. But, and you're more than a hairdresser, you're a stylist, you're the golden girl. Someone called you the Gordon Ramsay, that cheeky chef, he was here, the Gordon Ramsay of the hair biz, and you're really not. Trained at Vidal Sassoon, Tony and Guy, all of that. Who was your mentor in the business? The king of Vidal Sassoon, or?
Really Vidal. I mean, for me, when I was coming up, it was Vidal. You know, there were many other people out there that are hairdressers that maybe people don't know and were more behind the scenes. And, you know, Trevor Sorby is a huge mentor for me as well. But Vidal was the person that crossed barriers. Consumers knew him, hairdressers knew him, and he set a standard.
Sure, the first time I saw that cut, the structure of, you just knew.
Amazing.
Was inspired by Vidal Sassoon. It had to be a Sassoon, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Let's come back and talk more about, it's not really about the hair, but it is. It's a business book, and it's a memoir, and it's a great read. Tabatha Coffey, our guest.